Well, it's the end of yet another week, and here on this channel that means one thing and one thing only. Every weekend I post an episode of this series we do called Your Take Not Mine, where I turn to you the viewers to give me your hottest NBA takes of the week based on what's going on at the time, and I then choose my favorite submissions and discuss them in a video. This week there has been a ton of second round playoff action, with most of the series really heating up, so of course there's plenty for us to discuss. In order to submit your takes, I make a community post on either the day of or the day before the video, similar to the one that you see on your screen now, so if you want a chance to be featured in a future episode, be sure to stay on the lookout for that. Before we start though, it turns out about 62% of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first take we'll be discussing comes to us from PokeWorld, and they say that the Brooklyn Nets can still win the championship this year, even without James Harden playing. So the Nets are currently facing off against the Milwaukee Bucks in a second round matchup that many believed would be the best series of the entire postseason, but to this point, the Nets have comfortably handled the Bucks twice, and in their one loss in the series, they played them incredibly close down to the wire. James Harden is currently out because of a hamstring injury that he's working his way back from, and despite his absence, the Bucks really haven't been able to overpower them, which is scary for the rest of the league, and obviously the reason why this take has come about. When you have a 1-2 punch as strong as Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, you still easily have enough firepower to compete with anyone in the league, and the role players around them have done a really good job stepping up in key moments as well. However, despite all of this, I'm not fully convinced that they can still win it all without Harden. Could they still win this series against the Bucks? Yeah, they probably can. Can they win a series against the Sixers and then go on to beat the champions of the West? That's a completely different story. We can't ignore the fact that the Nets, despite keeping the game very close, struggled offensively in Game 3 against the Bucks, and without Harden, they don't really have someone who can facilitate and make life easier for everyone else as a playmaker. Durant and Irving are dominant scorers, but Harden's the one who generates open looks for the guys around them with his passing, and when they traded for him, it was his playmaking that really put them over the edge as contenders. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Laney, and they say that Giannis and the Bucks have officially reached their ceiling, and Giannis really should have tested the waters in free agency before jumping the gun and committing long-term to the organization by signing a max contract. So the Bucks find themselves in a pretty disappointing hole right now, as they are currently down in their series against the Brooklyn Nets 2-1, and the worst part is they're not even facing the Nets at full strength, as we just discussed in the last take. Coming into this series, the Bucks were looking dangerous after sweeping the Miami Heat in an arc of redemption after last season, so many assumed they were much more ready to take that leap this year. But if they lose in the second round for a second consecutive season with the way that the team is currently built, then I can't lie, it wouldn't be unreasonable to agree with Laney's take. Giannis Antetokounmpo is currently signed to a super max contract, Chris Middleton is being paid a max contract for the next 3 years, and in the middle of this season, they also paid Jrue Holiday a max contract extension as well, who was brought in to be the supposed missing piece to put them over the edge as a team. Those three alone put them right at the max of the cap space limit, so their ability to make any big moves will be incredibly difficult moving forward. If this team as it currently stands continues to come up short, then I'm not even sure how they could fix it, and if that's the case, then Giannis, as loyal as he is, will undoubtedly regret not at least considering testing the waters and possibly making a move elsewhere. The next take we'll be discussing comes to us from Alexander, and he says that the Celtics should go after Hassan Whiteside in free agency to help address their thin big man depth, which was undoubtedly one of the team's biggest weak spots this season. The Celtics were one of the biggest underachievers this season, which is kind of crazy to think about considering how bright their future looked just a few short seasons ago. They have two absolute studs in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but the supporting cast around them has been been, to say the least, lackluster. Danny Ainge stepped down earlier this week from the general manager duties of the team, and former coach Brad Stevens actually replaced him in that role, so he now has a lot of work on his hands to turn the franchise around and get them back on track. Without question, their interior defense will have to be addressed, but I really don't think Hassan Whiteside is the answer, or even part of the answer here. Whiteside has been an interesting player over the years as a guy who always seems to be able to produce numbers-wise and block a lot of shots, but similar to Andre Drummond, his numbers don't seem to actually impact the team in a positive way. He's a shot blocker who tends to chase blocks more often than actually staying disciplined on defense. He commits a lot of fouls, and as the Lakers just learned with Andre Drummond this year, these kind of players don't necessarily solve much. Whiteside isn't a bad player necessarily, but he's not someone who should be starting for a contender either, so I think the Celtics should probably stay away and try to find a solution elsewhere. And finally, the last take we'll be discussing today comes to us from Dominic, and he says that the Clippers would have actually been better if they never traded for Paul George at all. When Kawhi Leonard was first about to sign with the Clippers in free agency, reports have said that he basically forced the team's hands and made them go out and acquire George to team up with him. At the time, these moves seemed like a massive thing for the Clippers, and they were supposed to be absolutely dominant as a result. But after their disappointment last year and streaky play so far in the postseason this year, taking a look back at the Paul George trade is at least worth a thought. I'm typically someone who feels as though Paul George gets way too much hate and people love to overreact when he has bad games, but at the same time, there's no question that he has come up small in moments that he really should have been taking advantage of. In the trade that brought him there, the Clippers gave up Danilo Gallinari, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and 5 first-round picks. That is a massive haul for the Thunder, and honestly, the combination of Gallinari and Gilgeous-Alexander very well may have been better for the team than George himself, as SGA has been a huge breakout young star this season, putting up about 24 points and 6 assists per game, and Gallinari has been one of the most reliable perimeter shooters the league has had for a long time. Again, it's not even necessarily because Paul George is bad, because objectively he's not, but what the Clippers gave up for him definitely set them back in hindsight. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the takes we discussed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.